So the next movie that I watched is one that I actually saw or heard about from the 2000 Academy Awards in 2001. That was the first year I'd watched all the Best Picture nominees before they were nominated, or before the Oscars. I think they had already been nominated because this is a depressing story. It was the year 2001 was the year that I got my pacemaker, and I was up in Klamath Falls, Oregon, at the doctor a lot, getting tests done. And so my mom and I went and saw, what did we see? We saw Traffic one night, and we saw Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon another night, and then we'd already seen Gladiator, and then I think we ended up renting Aaron Brockovich, and I'm forgetting Chocolat, had already played at my theater, and somehow we saw all of the Oscars that year. And I had always been an Oscar watcher, but that year stuck in my memory as a year where I really had skin in the game because I had seen all the movies. And so I think I taped that Oscars, and we used to watch it a lot. And so the films that were all nominated from the year 2000 have all been on this weird, hey, that was the year you almost died list. So they've been on this list for a long time, and I was wandering around Videodrome, and I was in the drama section, and they had Vatel. Vatel was only nominated for its art direction. I don't think you could see the title. Could you? There we go. Can you see it that way? So it was only nominated for the art direction. So I've been holding on to this movie for 19 years because of this almost died list. 18 years, whatever. Oh my God, that was 18 years ago. My pacemaker can vote. So I rented it for that. The art direction does not let you down. It is as sumptuous as you would expect. I read that this movie was boring and all kinds of things, and I was shocked by how not boring it is, and how I think it probably plays a lot better now than it did 18 years ago. I think it was marketed as a romance, and it is very much not a romance. There is a romance subplot, but the plot is it's a true story, a true-ish story of a man named Vatel who was putting on a big banquet for, I think it's Louis XIV, and for 2,000 people, or is it 8,000 people? I can't remember if it's 2,000 people or 8,000. Several thousands of people. He's trying to feed them all. It's this big 3-day banquet. And as he is putting this on, he is dealing with all these vendors that are not being paid for their goods and services. I think we know where we're going with 2019 and our current, leader. And as that's happening, there's also this big spectacle that's happening, and most of the court was only paying attention to the spectacle. But for the most part, you're behind the scenes of the spectacle watching the nuts and bolts. And there's one scene in particular that is super disturbing where this opera singer comes floating down this, ropes, and they're singing, and there's sparks everywhere. And in the background, there's the pulley thing, pulling the rope to get the opera singer down, and the sparks freak the horse out, and then the horse freaks out. When the horse freaks out, the groomsman tries to calm the horse down, but meanwhile the horse has kicked him in such a way that he gets tied into the ropes, and then he gets his neck broken, falls into the water, the horse falls in the water, the horse and the man both die. Meanwhile, this opera singer doesn't know what's happening. They just keep singing, and then everyone is like, wow, this spectacle is amazing. And you see the horror and tragedy and death that happens to bring about this spectacle. And Vatel, played by Gérard Depardieu, sees this happening too, and is like, this is not worth this man's life. It's really intense. There's another sequence where he's talking about the way that these vendors are not being paid, and he's talking to a courtier played by Uma Thurman, and she's like, yeah, but the poor are honored to be the king's debtors, or the king's creditors. It's the highest honor. And he very flatly replies, yeah, my parents were so honored it killed them. And you're just like, oh shit. So the film is really talking about class and the way that the rich stay rich by fucking over the poor. And it's so pointed and wonderful. And in the history, it's recorded that Vatel killed himself because the fish came late. But this film will have you believe that he killed himself because he finally could no longer be satisfied being a cog in this horrible wheel where he was just a piece to be traded, and that these horrible, one percenters are just literally breaking people's backs for their entertainment. And I think it plays very differently in 2019 than it did in the year 2000. If you're considering this is pre 9/11, pre literally everything and everywhere that we're at, pre Occupy Wall Street, pre all of these things, and now we're in the longest government shutdown of history, and there's people literally doing their jobs and not getting paid, and some of which will never get paid because they're contractors. And that is the story that's happening in this film. We're literally recreating the court of Louis XIV. So I think this film had a lot to say about class and wealth distribution, and I don't know that it was received well because people didn't want to hear that. We're in the middle of the .com boom when this was coming out. Like, very prescient film, and one of my favorite things where a film takes the past to comment on the now, but doesn't do anything. They just show you the past because the history repeats itself, and you just have to look at the past to see how shitty it ever is in the present, except that this was 18 years ago and it's even worse now. So kudos to Roland Joffé for and the screenplay is by Jean Lebrun, who is French, and it was adapted by Tom Stoppard, and Tom Stoppard is Tom Stoppard. So I can't believe this movie was not as well looked at. Even some more newer reviews weren't into it, and I was just like, you're all dumb. So I recommend this movie. Don't go in it thinking you're going to get a romance. Don't look at the fucking poster, because the poster makes you think you're going to get like a romance and intrigue with Uma and Tim Roth and Gérard Depardieu, and that is not what this film is. This is a political treatise, and it's, I think, quite brilliant. So this is Vatel. It's on DVD. I recommend it a lot.